1. Got a ticket a few days ago, super simple request, hook up an old printer, and install some current printers and computers. The printer names were not given, and the users that need the printers installed are not given. No biggie. I'm used to having to gather info. Here's the email chain. Hi, user. Do you know the names of the printers that we want connected to these users' PCs? Thanks. She responded with, we want to add the following printers to, then she gave the names of 2 computers and 2 printers. We also have an extra printer in the back lab we would like to get set up to those same computers. So far so good. I know the printers we need and the computers that need them. However, she didn't give me any contact info for the users. I figure the best way to fix this would be to just email clickable links so she can forward it to anyone who needs the printer installed. My reply was, okay, so for the first 2, clickable link for printer 1, if you forward this email to the users on those computers, they can simply click the link above and it will install the printer automatically. For some reason, the naming for the printer, printer 2, and might actually have a more unusual name, so we may need to try this link. Printer 2 clickable link. As for the extra printer in the back, I'm guessing it's not set up as a networked printer. Thanks. Now, here's where it starts to fall apart. She ignores the entire section about the clickable links and focuses on the old printer. Her reply was, the one in the back is not set up. That one is specifically for the label printer. So she just says it's not set up. Cool, we have a somewhat short back and forth about it. Is it a brand new printer? Does anyone currently use it? It is not new, but we want to use it. It's not currently set up. Was it purchased through IT? Can you maybe send me a picture of it? It's an old printer. And she gives me the serial number. I can't find any info for that serial number in our asset database, but I still may be able to set it up. Where specifically are you? Are you at the main office? Yes, we're in the main office, and she gives me directions for her part of the office. I'll drop by shortly after lunch if that's okay. That should work. So after lunch, I stop by her area, and she isn't there. One of the other employees shows me the old printer. It's a 10-plus-year-old printer that was decommissioned years ago. Just for kicks, I see if there's a compatible network jack nearby, and there isn't. I go back to my desk, check some documentation, and learn that we actually can't re-add this printer to our print server. Or rather, in order to add it, we would need an approval from our committee. It's complicated, don't worry too much about it. We have a printing committee to minimize paper waste and environmental impact. So I sent her this email that she doesn't see until the next day. Hey, do you guys have a regular printer down there? We actually can't hook up this old printer if there's a regular printer down there, unless we get approval from the Print Smart Committee. She proceeds to not reply for a couple of days, so I send this. Hi, any updates on this? After 2 more days, she replies with, don't worry about hooking up the old printer. The back lab computers aren't working with a specific printer, though. I thought by now we had resolved the installation problems. I sent her clickable links. So now I'm thinking there is a more complicated problem. I follow up with, are they even installed on those computers? If they are, what happens when you try to print them? No response. A week passes. I'm getting a little frustrated that my several weeks old ticket for a super simple problem is still open. So I fuck up and send her this. Scheduling seems to be a problem to getting this ticket resolved. Let's take care of it with clickable links via email. You can forward this email to anyone that needs the printer installed. If that doesn't work for them, have the user call me, I give my phone number, and I'll assist in installing manually. Thank you. I include links for printer 1 and 2. Well, let's just say I shouldn't have done that. 10 years in IT doesn't prepare you for this, I guess. She replied within minutes with this. I don't feel there was ever a scheduling issue. If you wanted to set up a time to come down, we could have accommodated that, but you did not. You stopped by one day after lunch, then sent a few emails, see below, with some questions. I'm a little annoyed by this. Technically, she's right. I only dropped by once, but she didn't provide any information for me to even see what the problem is. I replied with, is it possible to have users click on the link I sent? Or is that not going to work? If it isn't, when would be a good time to come downstairs today to resolve? I figured maybe she was the type of user who just really wants someone desk-side. But surprising nobody, she never responded to this email. I forwarded the entire email chain to my boss, so she would be aware in case this user wanted to complain about me. Boss said I did nothing wrong, and the user will likely not try to contact us anymore. If she does, I'll just get the problem fixed. 2. What a roller coaster today has been. The place I work has about 400 employees. Everyone has their own phone number. On top of this, about 60 folks are in a call center capacity taking calls that come in on a toll-free number. Because of all this, our system is configured for a capacity of 46 local calls at a time, 23 dedicated to callers into our toll-free line, and another 23 lines for the rest of the business to share. Excess calls to the toll T1 will roll over to the second set of local lines, with room for another 23 long-distance calls and 23 international calls. We mostly support only local folks, but sometimes they move and we need service to allow them toll-free access to our services. For those familiar with telephony, this is for T1s. Business has been picking up over the last year since the vid, and for the last 4 months, pretty much, we've been maxing out our capacity for local calls. The number of people dialing into the call center is taking up the 23 lines the rest of our business uses. People would get busy signals calling us. We would get busy signals making outbound calls, unless it was long distance. Then we could make calls. Tickets started rolling in. My phone is broken. No, we only have so many phone lines and they're all in use. Non-call center people share phone lines with call center people for local calls. Customers waiting takes up a phone line. You need to make calls early in the day, or late when usage is low. Rinse and repeat for 3 months. Tickets stopped coming in, but managers are finally complaining that their employees can't reach their customers. Customers are upset. They come to me. Yes, I work in IT, but I'm desktop support. I deal with endpoints. There are special agents in IT, shit gets complicated. Problem is, we aren't big enough for a dedicated telephony guy. The guy I took over for was also desktop support, but in his previous life he was a phone guy. He was a key player setting up our current system. He trained us in basic configuration and endpoint troubleshooting. We do what we can, then outsource the hard stuff to our support vendor. This is the first place I've had access to the system. Since starting here, I've received some additional training, and I spend off time learning up. After 2 years on the system, I can do day-to-day tasks, basic endpoint troubleshooting, configure new phones, trunks, routes, gateways. Fuck me. That being said, I'm really good with technology, and know enough about telephony to ask the right people the right questions, and I'm always happy to engage our vendor for support when I can't find an answer. I get to work. Hey, network engineer, can we add more T1s without upgrading hardware? Sure, go, buddy, we have 2 open ports. Call the software company. Any additional software cost to increase capacity? Nope. Go for it, buddy. Call the telecom company. We're at capacity. How much to add another T1? $500 a month. Let us know when to go. I submit a ticket to our software vendor for the additional T1 and do the needed software configuration changes, because I'm not touching it. Software vendor comes back and tells us they don't have a contract with our telecom vendor, and we need to order directly through them. Once the line is ran, they'll come configure switches and software. Call telecom to place our order. You waiting. While waiting, we have managers asking us, are you sure it's a capacity issue? We remember having higher queues before and not getting busy signals. I show them real-time data that shows 100% usage. I tell my boss that based on everything, they are remembering wrong, misunderstood, or configuration is changed. Fact is, capacity right now is 46 for them based on current configuration. 2 weeks later, no word from telecom. We escalate. Ask to be prioritized because we don't like our customer being upset with us. They get us a PM assigned to finalize some details. PM comes back and says we have 4 T1s. Here's how they are currently configured. And how would you like the new one configured? And oh, by the way, one of your T1s is throwing an error and is not currently in service. I look at the email confused. Their description of our service setup doesn't match the description from the guy I took over for. At this point, I call my network engineer. We review our hardware setup. We're supposed to have 5 T1s, a total capacity of 121 lines, 23 lines for the toll line, then 43 for local calls. We notice that no calls are coming in on the line that's supposed to be dedicated to our toll line. We realize that when we switched toll providers, the lines weren't moved. They forwarded calls to one of the other line groups instead. Since the change, we lost 24 lines. I guess the call center folks were onto something when they said we used to have more capacity. He also said he confirmed the line reported as down isn't down according to the switch, so it's likely just not configured on the software. I am able to confirm the line is indeed not included in either the local or long-distance route groups. When did this happen? Before my time is all I know. We've been without these lines for at least 3 years now. Now I call my telecom sales rep and we review what the PM sent over. His notes don't match hers. He does research, and finds we have a second account with 2 T1s on it that connected on our side. He also reviews my bill for my toll-free numbers with me. He thinks he can beat their prices, and confirms that we are indeed no longer paying for a dedicated T1 for toll-free calls. I asked him how long that account existed with the T1s, and he tells me over 20 years. Naturally, I'm curious why we have this account if we aren't using the lines. He thinks that we stopped using them when we upgraded our infrastructure 10 years ago to VoIP, and someone didn't cancel those old lines. Silver lining, though, instead of ordering a new line, he can migrate these lines to our current configuration. We'll just need to re-add them to our switches and configure them in software. No waiting to roll a truck for a new run. I found a current bill for the T1s we didn't know about. The current rate for these is $2,700 a month, and we haven't used these lines in nearly 10 years. I also found out we don't have any lines just for international calls. All international calls are just ran through our long-distance provider, so any of the lines can be used for that since they're all configured to support long distance. So, where does all this leave us? I have 24 lines already configured on the switch that just need to be enabled in the software. We have another 46 lines already connected to the building, just needs to be connected to the switch, configured on switch, and enabled in software. We don't need to set aside 24 lines to support international calling. Any line can handle it. 10 years ago, someone forgot to cancel our account. We've been paying on out-of-service lines since. We don't need more phone lines, we just need to use what we already have. Instead of spending an additional $6,000 a year, we're going to rebundle the account we forgot about, have more lines for our call center and other employees, and probably end up saving $12,000 a year compared to our current bill. Boss very happy. 3. When COVID hit and the shutdown happened, the entire company scrambled to prepare to go fully remote by the end of one business day. In the midst of the chaos, we needed 3 major things. 1. A cloud-based file storage and sharing system. 2. A web video and conferencing solution. 3. A miracle since our outsourced IT company deemed 1 and 2 out of scope and was going to charge us our firstborn children and king-size Snickers to get it done, at the earliest 3 months. Let's back up real fast. I had been working at the organization for 1 month at this time. I was originally hired as a SharePoint admin. However, my boss at the time didn't really know how SharePoint worked, or even how it was going to benefit the company. She just had it at her last job and thought this company needed it too, which in hindsight, she was right. My first week on the job was spent waiting for the IT company to grant my MS account SharePoint admin access. By Monday, they still didn't have it done. I forwarded the ticket number to my boss, she calls up our account manager and rips into them. In less than a minute, I have SharePoint admin access. However, that's not all I had. They actually granted me global access over the entire domain and account. I brought this up to my boss, who said, "Okay, but do you have access to SharePoint now?" Which I say, "Yeah, but now I have." She cuts me off and says, "Good, then start working on SharePoint." I just back out of her office and save the fight for another day. Back to the main timeline. I mentioned in an emergency operations meeting that we have the needed solutions already with SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. Granted, no one understands how to use those, but they are there for us to use. Bad idea. Everyone looks at me with either pure bliss or confusion. The CEO of the company goes, "Let him train the entire company by the end of the day and we will all go home." So I do just that, 8 hours of training large groups over SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, 200 plus employees, and I am the only in-house IT we have to pull this off. But it gets done, and we were all in our homes. A month goes by, and I am just doing my SharePoint thing, and I get a Teams call from the CEO. Well, this is either good or bad. The following conversation between me, the CEO, the COO, and the president. Hello? We're wondering if you have a moment to help us with something. Of course, what can I assist you with? A very uncomfortable pause follows. I don't know if they knew their cameras were on, mine was as well, but I could tell they were not happy with what was about to be said. We're having to make some layoffs. Internally, I'm thinking, well, it was fun while it lasted, but don't worry, you're safe. We need you here, especially after you got us all remote. Internally, I'm thinking, hold up. We just got off the phone with the IT company, and we wanted them to start turning off accounts and shutting down emails. They said they could do it, but it would be a 2-week turnaround. We need it all done today. They mentioned you have admin access, is that true? Yeah, I got it a few weeks ago. Shut down everything. I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? We need you to pause all emails, Teams chat, doc sharing, everything. We also need everyone locked out of their accounts while we start making phone calls. The only people who need access is us 3 and you. Okay, I can do that, but what do we do when people start asking when they're locked out? We have asked that our IT company send an email to everyone in an hour saying that there are technical difficulties and to please be patient. Okay, so after I shut everything off, what do I do next? Wait for one of us to call you. We will have a list to you on whose accounts need to be permanently shut off. Okay, I can do that. Also, who's your boss? I give them the name. Okay. You will report to me now until further notice. So I turn off everything, chill at home, and play video games for 2 hours before I get another Teams call from the president. Okay, I'm sending you a list now. Got it. I'll work on the accounts and turn everything back on. Good deal. Oh, and one more thing. You are no longer SharePoint admin. You are now our systems administrator. Okay, of what systems? All of them. Okay, but how many systems is that? I don't know. Whatever software we use for any development, you are the admin of it. I suggest getting with the different departments and finding out what they use and go from there. Okay, that might take a while. Once you're done, report to me on what you find, as well as the cost of everything. Okay, excuse me if this is too soon to ask, but will this come with any compensation? Yeah, it's too soon. The call ends. I hope this pandemic isn't too long. I have a feeling this won't be fun. I remember thinking to myself, I had no team, no one that was left in the company that had any IT knowledge that would be useful to me. We ended up ending our contract with the old IT firm and went with a better one. But they were short-staffed all the time, and I was pretty much left in charge of the entire IT infrastructure and management of the company as a one-man show. When 2 months prior, I was just supposed to be making and managing SharePoint sites. RIP. 4. Customer needs a new TV and wants their DVD player connected. After getting it all connected, they asked me some more questions about the DVD player they own for the last 5 years. Why is it when I select HDD that it's higher quality? HDD stands for hard disk drive, or hard drive. It's the internal storage of the machine, not the DVD. Selecting HDD will record the TV programs to the internal hard drive. It has nothing to do with quality. I'm pretty sure it does. When I select HDD, it's always in high quality. No, it has nothing to do with quality. You're selecting the storage location. You're going to record the program to the internal HDD, not the DVD. It definitely has something to do with quality. It doesn't. I believe it does. And why is it that the hard drive is smaller than the DVD? No. When I was here a year ago, it was 500 gigabytes in size. The DVD is 4 gigabytes in size. No, I'm right. The DVD is bigger. They're not going to put a 2 gigabyte hard drive inside of a DVD recorder. But at the top, it says that it's only got 35 minutes of recording time remaining on the HDD. It said 35:30. That's 35 hours and 30 minutes. No, that's 35 hours and 30 minutes of recording time. 35 hours? That's not possible. You can't put 35 hours onto there. That's not possible. Yes, it is. We've got 5 terabyte hard drives nowadays. That's 500 gigabytes. That's over 300 hours of recording time compared to the one you have inside of the machine. It's not too far-fetched that it can contain 35 hours of recording time. No, it can only contain 1 hour. It has 500 gigabytes in storage. It can contain significantly more than 1 hour. No, it can't. It's only 1 hour max. Look, it says here, I point to the screen, 35:30, 35 hours 30 minutes. That's not possible. That doesn't exist. Sir, I studied IT for 2 years. I've been working with troublesome PCs since I was 8, and I've run my computer repair business for 1.5 years now. I know what I'm talking about. 35 hours of recording time isn't crazy. The disk cannot have 35 hours recording time. Disk? We're talking about the hard drive. The one that's selected at the top of the screen, not the disk. Yes, we're talking about the disk. No, we're not. The disk can hold an hour of recording time, yes, but the internal hard drive can hold 35 hours. 35 hours? No, that's not possible. The HDD inside of the machine, not the disk, the machine, can hold 500 gigabytes of data, which is 35 hours of recording time. That's not possible. We've got hard drives with terabytes, 1 terabyte of data. That's thousands of gigabytes of data. Yes, it is. The disk can't hold that much. Disk? We're talking about the hard drive. You know what? Whatever. And the DVB? I'm looking up what DVB stands for. That's a TV signal standard. Nothing to do with the quality or storage location. Okay, well, before you leave, make sure you select the HDD that gives the best quality. Sir, the HDD is the internal drive, not the quality. XP stands for high quality, according to Google. That is what your quality is at. Ah, okay. Got an email this morning from the customer saying that the DVD player is no longer recording. They got annoyed, saying they didn't want me to change anything about their setup. I only disconnected the HDMI cables from the old TV and put them back into the new TV. I haven't touched any settings on their DVD player. Told me they'd figure it out, and I wouldn't have to come. At this point, if the customer can't figure it out himself, I'm not going to help him with any queries regarding the TV. The elderly are really difficult to handle, especially the senile ones that keep forgetting what you said after 30 seconds and then repeat what they said before. 5. Between semesters at university, I worked in the machining and metal fabrication business. This story takes place when I was a laser machine operator. One summer, I was to teach a few people how to run a machine over a period of about 2 months, before I had to go back to uni. Most of them didn't make the grade, but the star of our story, Blank, was something else. Not a bad guy, but just completely uninterested in what I was trying to teach. The reason I call him Blank is because when you try to teach him something, he would stare at you blankly. And if you asked him a question, he would either say he blanked on the answer, or he wouldn't even understand the question. For example, to turn on the laser machine, you need to turn on the power regulator. There are 2 switches on the box. The first one is the on-off switch, which we need to turn to the on position. The second is a switch to change the regulator from 3-phase output to single-phase output. This second switch we do not touch, and there is a very clear warning to never change this switch. I have walked Blank and a few others through this process for a couple of days, so each day I get one of them to do the full process by themselves. Take a wild guess at which one Blank used to turn on the machine. If you guessed his single-phase, 3-phase switch, you're a winner. The tale I wanted to specifically tell is one of the few times I made him operate the laser machine without any help from myself or any others I was teaching. Normally, they would collaborate to set up the machine correctly, but I just wanted to test Blank's abilities as he was clearly the worst of the group. At this stage, he was able to do the basics of turning on the machine and setting up a job to be cut, so the next step for him was to actually cut a job by himself. I would stand back and ask him to do everything. After a while, I finally hear the machine turn on, but I can't hear any cutting. After about half an hour of faffing about, Blank finally comes to me and asks for help. I'm about to ask him to walk me through his process when I see something obviously wrong. Normally, there is a little red LED light that comes out of the laser head. This shows exactly where the laser is in relation to the sheet we are cutting. Using this LED, we do a process called framing. The laser will move over the sheet metal in a rectangular shape, showing the maximum dimensions of the parts we are cutting. The light is missing, so clearly Blank hasn't even framed the job properly if this light is missing at this stage in the process. So already I'm a bit nervous. Blank tells me that he tried to cut the job, but no beam came out, which explains why there are no marks on the material I asked him to cut. I asked him to turn on the LED light, but when he presses a button, it fails to illuminate. At this point, I can clearly see why nothing happened, but I'm trying to make this teaching lesson, so I ask him to see why the LED didn't turn on. Blank still has no idea. For his part, all he knows is that he set up the job, tried to cut it, but it didn't cut. But the LED is off for some reason. Next to the LED button, there is a second button that we need to press called Shutter. Both buttons light up when active but are off by default. You cannot turn on the LED without opening the shutter. You cannot cut without opening the shutter. And the shutter button is off. No matter how hard I try and guide Blank to the correct solution, he always misses this crucial point. A closed shutter means no LED and no cutting, but he just cannot see the issue at all. Finally, I just give up and show him the shutter button, which is clearly off. I know I can't teach Blank anymore for the day, and just do the job myself. Fortunately for my sanity, Blank didn't stick around at our company for too much longer after this. As the summer drew to a close, I was able to train up one guy to operate the machine full-time, and a second guy who would be working part-time. Blank left for greener pastures, with some modicum of success, so good for him, I guess. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Terrific Tales of Technology, episode 25. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, we have a birthday shout-out today that goes to Sylvia. Sylvia doesn't say how old they are, but today is their birthday. I hope you have a very happy birthday today, Sylvia, and that you make sure you take time to relax and pamper yourself. It is very important to pamper yourself on your birthday, or at least as soon as you can, because I do understand things will sometimes get in the way. Okay, I think, is that the only one we have for today? Yes, it is. Okay, good. Right, now before we go, I'd like to sing Happy Birthday, and then we're going to head off for now. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sylvia. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and I think we'll wrap things up there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.